In this video, we're going to be talking about our premium line of wedding albums. The topics we're going to cover in this video include what is a flush mount album, what ultimately is changing as we go from one of our premium albums to the next, and then we're going to cover those premium albums, which includes our Tuscany Contemporary and Classic, our Echo album, our Glacier album, our Mosaic album, and our Sierra album. The first topic that I'd like to cover, which is an important topic before we get into each of the individual albums that we offer, is the idea of a true flush mount album. All of our premium albums are true flush mount albums. So let's talk about what a true flush mount album is versus what a album that isn't flush mount entails. A true flush mount album basically means that the pages inside the album, the page in that print is one and the same. That image, that design is printed directly to that mounted page. A non-flush mount page or album basically has the print that's done separately, then it's applied to the page with an adhesive or glue. The result is the true flush mount is a much higher quality, it's going to last longer, it looks better, and one of the other benefiting factors of it is what we refer to as a hairline seam, or what other album manufacturers or photographers refer to as a seamless seam. Real quickly with that, if you have an album with a hairline seam or no seam center, it's a lot easier to run a picture across two pages or do a spread that's one image covering the entire spread. If you have a non-flush mounted album, there is going to be a little bit of a gap in between those two pages, so it's not as easy to run certain images across a spread as there's a little bit of a gap, especially images where like you have faces and expressions. It's going to cut the face apart, and it's not as easy to run an image like that across. So that's the first concept, because all of our premium albums are true flush mount designs. So just before we get into going through each of the individual albums, the one thing that I want to point out is with our premium albums, essentially what's changing is you go from one album to the next. What's changing is the cover. In each case, it's always the cover. The inside is always a true flush mounted page design. So again, I just want to point out that what is ultimately changing is the covers. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. As we go through each album, we're going to point out how the cover and the cover design changes. In our premium line of wedding albums, the first option in this line is our Tuscany Series. Now with the Tuscany Series, there's actually two options. There's the Tuscany Contemporary and Tuscany Classic. So what we're going to talk about right now briefly is what is the Tuscany album, and then what are the differences between the two. Ultimately, the Tuscany albums are leather-based cover albums. They're a little bit basically more traditional. There's different leather cover options, and you can basically do engraving, which is called embossing. You can actually do up to 3 lines of embossing. The one album that I'm holding right now has 1 line, but you can also add 2 lines in the bottom corner as well. So included in the price is up to 3 lines of embossing. When you're choosing your leathers, and the leather options to choose from are on our website, with the Tuscany Classic albums, you have a choice between about 8 different leatherette options, including black, brown, white, burgundy, red, and a few other colors, as well as upgrading to a premium leather. With the Tuscany Contemporary album, you actually have a few more choices. There's a vegan leather and bonded leather. So there's different choices. You have, let's see here, about 13 different leather choices when you go with a Tuscany Contemporary album between vegan and bonded leather. So the leather options is one difference, but the main difference between the Tuscany Classic and Contemporary is actually the way that the cover feels and looks. With the Contemporary album, it's a bit more of a modern design, which is why it's called the Tuscany Contemporary. It's more of a book feel and design, the way the spine is put together and the way the book overall feels. To show you the difference, if I go to a Tuscany Classic album, what you have as a difference is that the leather is padded. There's padding inside to give it a little bit of a more softer, padded feel, which is more of a traditional feel, which is why it's called the Tuscany Classic. The final difference is that if you look at the album, this is a Tuscany Classic, and you'll notice that there is a inset photo on the cover. You can do this, but only on the Classics. It's not an option to upgrade to the inset photo, which we call a cameo photo, on the Tuscany Contemporary, but it is an option on the Tuscany Classic. So those are basically the difference. Just to recap, the Classic has a padded feel. It's more of a traditional feel. The Contemporary doesn't have that padding, so it's more of a modern feel and look. The Classic allows you to do that inset photo, and then of course, once you choose either the Classic or the Contemporary, you have different leather options to choose from. The next album we're going to talk about is our Echo album, and this basically has two things that separates this album apart from the others. The first is that the cover is a canvas, which is real nice. It gives it a nice feel, a nice touch, and a real nice look for the other thing that sets it apart, which is that it's the only album option where the entire book, front to back, can be a printed design. The design that we're looking at is one of our FineLine designs. It's our most popular cover design when we do the Echo album. Basically features the bride and groom's name, wedding date, and one of their favorite pictures. But the whole thing is a FineLine design. There's some little details in the design when you look up close at it. So that's what separates the Echo album apart. It's a canvas cover, and it's the only one that has a full printed design wrapped around the cover. The next album we're going to talk about is our Glacier album. And if this is the album for you, it's going to be very easy to make all the decisions because there's not a lot of decisions when it comes to the Glacier album. Basically, it's an album that allows you to feature a photo of your choice on the cover. On my right here, I have a full page Glacier, and on my left here, I have a partial page Glacier. Essentially, when it comes to designing your Glacier album, the leather is always the black leather, so you don't have to make a decision on that. All you have to choose is what image you want to feature and then whether you want to do the full or partial. It's the same price, it's just a preference. So that is the Glacier album. The next album that we're going to talk about is one of my personal favorites. It's called the Mosaic album. Now, what's really unique about the Mosaic album is that there are a lot of varieties of how it can be designed. Ultimately, what makes a Mosaic album is your ability to combine different leathers. So let's first talk about that. When choosing your leathers, you have a couple options. We have exotic leathers and deluxe leathers. Now, some of the Mosaic designs you can do all one exotic leather or all one deluxe leather. You could do two different leathers. 2 exotics, 2 deluxes, but most do 1 deluxe and 1 exotic leather. So choosing different leathers to work together to give your album a unique look and fit your personality and your taste and colors and textures makes doing this album a lot of fun. As I mentioned, there are over 20 different designs. So it's best if you know you want to do the Mosaic album, if you visit our website, you can actually pull up a PDF that will show you all the different designs and the different ways that the leathers and pictures on them can look. And then the fun part is, again, choosing your different leathers. So let me just show you a couple examples here. This is one Mosaic sample that we have. It's got a nice exotic leather, which I think is the vintage tool black, and then it has a white deluxe leather as its accent with a photo in the center. The Mosaic albums, it'll give you a bunch of different photo options. Again, this one features 1 versus this example, which features 3 photos. It's got a nice exotic leather around the spine and around to the back, and then a black deluxe leather. So this is another of the many design options. And real quickly, here is another option with features a exotic leather across the middle, a deluxe color accent leather with 1 featured image. So the Mosaic is a lot of fun to put together, but it varies in the pricing. If you do an album that has 2 leathers versus just 1, the price is more for the 2 leathers. And then as you do the photos, if it's 1 photo, it'll have a price. If you do 2 photos, it costs more for each individual photo. And if you do a design with 3 photos. So on our Mosaic album page, we have the pricing for all the different designs. So it does vary depending on ultimately which design you choose. But it's a nice album, has a lot of personality and a lot of options to really put something together that, that you're going to have fun choosing your colors, your leathers, your photos, and things like that. So that's the Mosaic album. The final premium album that we're going to cover in this video is our Sierra album, which is also our newest to the premium album lineup. This is a very unique album, and it's very modern, very contemporary. The first thing you'll notice right off the bat is that unlike all of our other albums, it's not square. It has a, I believe it's 13 by 9.5 inch design. So that already sets it apart, makes it a little bit different. The cover is the biggest thing that separates this from all the other albums. It is a metal cover. It's a very thick, sturdy, solid, strong cover. If you're looking for something, if metal finishes, metallic gloss, things like that interest you in prints and photos, the Sierra album might interest you. It is going to be a cover that's going to last for a very long time because it is a solid block of aluminum with the cover design printed right onto it. So it's a very vibrant image, a very good amount of contrast because of it being printed right on that metal. The other element with the Sierra album is because of its size, it has a different design that we do, different from all the other bridal wedding albums that we offer, either our bridal design or a full page. The Sierra has to be custom made. So you pick a range of photos, and then we have a designer that has to do a custom design to put your album together based on what images you pick and how they go together and things like that. So that is the Sierra album.